Assalamualaikum. I'm Dr. Abir Sajjad from Anatomy Department, Sahara Medical College. Today we're going to discuss the skin and fascia and contents of back of leg, and then we're going to discuss the flexor retinaculum and then tarsal tunnel. Although laymen call the whole lower limb as leg, but in terms of anatomy and surgery, the leg is the portion of lower limb between the knee and ankle joint. We can observe the two bones of leg, medially tibia, laterally fibula, which are connected to each other by the interosseous membrane and by the facial septa and the outer deep fascia layer. The leg is divided into compartments. You can observe between tibia, interosseous membrane, fibula, and the anterior septum, and the layer of deep fascia. This is the anterior compartment. Then we can observe here between anterior posterior septa, the lateral surface of fibula, and the lateral part of deep fascia. We can see containment of lateral compartment of leg, and then the larger posterior compartment, which is bounded by posteriorly the deep fascia layer. Anteriorly we can observe the posterior surface of tibia, interosseous membrane, posterior surface of fibula, and the posterior intermuscular septum. Then further you can observe that there is a transverse intermuscular septum coming from deep fascia onto the posterior intermuscular septum and dividing the posterior compartment into a superficial larger compartment and a deep smaller compartment. As these are closed compartments, especially the anterior compartment, which is tightly packed, and the deep layer of posterior compartment, which is tightly packed along with the neurovascular bundle, there can be compartment syndrome owing to any injury to the muscle, inflammation, collection of pus, or collection of blood or hematoma, etc. Whereas from the superficial posterior compartment and from the lateral compartment along the tibial and common fibular nerves, the infection can be transmitted to the popliteal fossa. As already discussed, we can see the layering of leg starting from skin and then superficial fascia with the subcutaneous collection of fat known as subcutaneous tissue, which also contains superficial veins, lymphatics, and nerves. We can observe the great saphenous vein here on the medial, posteromedial side, and on the posterior aspect you can observe small saphenous vein here. So along with that, then there is the deep fascia layer surrounding the leg and also connected here on the anterior border and then the medial surface and posterior border of tibia, and it is also continuous with its periosteum. Now different septa arising from this deep fascia layer, which is also known as crural fascia, and the interosseous membrane and the two bones of leg are going to divide leg into different compartments. And you can see anterior compartment, lateral compartment, and posterior compartment. And we have another layer of intermuscular septum, the transverse septum, which is going to further subdivide the posterior compartment. In the lower part of the leg, where all the muscles are going to be in the form of tendons, the tendons and neurovascular bundle is enwrapped by this deep fascia thickening anteriorly, which is going to make superior and inferior extensor retinacula. Posteriorly, this transverse septum is going to thicken up to form tarsal tunnel or flexor retinaculum, and laterally it is going to form the superior and inferior peroneal retinacula. Cutaneous nerves of leg, as with all the cutaneous nerves, are present in the subcutaneous tissue, and they are going to supply the skin and subcutaneous tissue of the leg. These are branches either of lumbosacral plexus directly or from the deep nerves arising from these plexuses. We can clearly observe here on that anteriorly the medial part of the skin is supplied by a saphenous nerve, which is arising from femoral nerve, also supplying part of the medial border of foot. Laterally, in the upper part, lateral sural cutaneous nerves arising from the common fibular nerve are going to supply the skin, while in the lower one-third of the leg, the superficial fibular nerve is going to become cutaneous, supplying this part, and also the dorsum of foot, except for medial lateral borders and this part of the defibular nerve, which is the first interdigital cleft. Then posteriorly, you can clearly observe that the region of popliteal fossa is supplied by the posterior cutaneous nerve of thigh coming directly from the sacral plexus. And then medially, saphenous nerve is going to supply. Laterally, we can see lateral sural cutaneous nerves arising from common fibular nerve and medial sural cutaneous nerve arising from the tibial nerve supplying the posterior aspect of leg, and then these two are connected to each other, and this forms the sural nerve. The sural nerve is going to supply the lateral border of foot along with the posterolateral part of leg. Then in the sole, we have cutaneous branches from tibial nerve directly, which are medial calcaneal branches supplying the skin over the heel, and then we have branches from the two terminal parts of tibial nerve, the medial and lateral plantar nerve. The medial plantar nerve is going to supply the skin of the medial side of sole and plantar aspect, sides and nail beds of the medial 3.5 toes, while the lateral plantar nerve is going to supply the skin of the lateral part of sole and the plantar aspect, sides and nail beds of lateral 1.5 toes. Going to discuss the venous drainage and lymphatic drainage of lower limb in details in separate lecture, but here we can observe that from the medial side of the foot, from the dorsal venous arch and combination of the medial end of dorsal venous arch and medial marginal vein of foot, there is a large vein which is subcutaneous or superficial, known as great saphenous vein. This vein is going to end in femoral vein in the anterior aspect of thigh. Then on the lateral side, we have the lateral end of dorsal venous arch joining with the lateral marginal vein of foot to form small saphenous vein. Small saphenous vein is going to end up in the popliteal fossa in popliteal vein. And then looking at the lymphatic drainage from the anterior and lateral aspect is going towards the superficial inguinal lymph nodes, mainly to the vertical group, and from the posterior aspect along the small saphenous vein, we can observe here that some of the superficial lymphatics are draining in the popliteal lymph nodes present in the popliteal fossa. We are going to discuss the posterior compartment of leg in detail. Here we can clearly observe the boundaries of posterior compartment. Anteriorly, the two bones of leg, the tibia, here you can see the posterior surface, and then fibula, the posterior surface is involved in the boundary, and in between is the interosseous membrane. Then from the fibula, there is this posterior intermuscular septum attached to the deep fascia of leg. On the back, the compartment is bound by deep fascia of leg. Then we can clearly observe here that a transverse intramuscular septum coming from the deep fascia and attached to the posterior intermuscular septum is going to divide the posterior compartment of leg into two parts or two subcompartments. The superficial subcompartment containing three important muscles, superficial muscles, and then the deep subcompartment containing four muscles, and the neurovascular bundle is also present in the deep subcompartment. So basically the deep subcompartment, which is a quite a tight and close compartment, can result in a compartment syndrome if there is any suppuration, pus collection, muscle injury, or hematoma. Now these muscles are arising from the posterior aspect of the leg bones. Here we can observe all of them. Some of them are crossing the knee joint, like you can see here, gastrocnemius, plantaris, and popliteus. They are crossing the knee joint, and some of them are crossing the ankle joint. So we'll discuss them in detail. Now the superficial muscles of posterior compartment of leg consist of three muscles. We can observe them here: gastrocnemius, soleus, and plantaris. These three are collectively known as triceps suri, and they have a common tendon which is going to insert here on the calcaneal tuberosity, and this is known as the tendocalcaneus or Achilles tendon. So discussing about the origin, you can observe here that the lateral head of gastrocnemius is arising from the lateral aspect of lateral condyle of femur, while medial head is arising from the popliteal surface of femur and a medial condyle of femur here. Then the soleus is arising from the posterior aspect of head and superior quarter of the posterior surface of fibula from the soleal line and middle 1/3 of medial border of tibia. Between these bony attachments, there is a tendinous arch or bridge-like structure of soleus, and this gives a gap below which the neurovascular structures are going to pass. And then the plantaris is going to take origin from inferior part of lateral supracondylar line of femur and also from oblique popliteal ligament. So three of these muscles are inserting together. That is why they are known as triceps suri, or the triceps of leg. Innervation of these muscles is through tibial nerve, root value S1, S2. Now these muscles are plantar flexors at ankle joint. As observed, soleus is taking origin from leg bone and inserting on calcaneus, so it is the sole or primary plantar flexor, while gastrocnemius can perform plantar flexion when the knee is fixed. Gastrocnemius can also flex the leg at knee joint. Now among the superficial group of these calf muscles, gastrocnemius is the fast twitch muscle, so it is basically involved in the rapid or quick movement that is involved in running and jumping, while soleus is known as the workhorse of plantar flexion, as we have already discussed that it is the primary plantar flexor and it is a slow twitch muscle and is making a bulk of calf, so it is also known as the first gear muscle. Plantaris is the smallest muscle of the superficial group. It is lying or originating deep to the lateral head of gastrocnemius. You can see the small belly here and the long thin tendon going towards the medial side, and then inserting on the calcaneal tendon. It can help slightly in plantar flexion produced by gastrocnemius, and basically it is a vestigial structure, and it can also be known as freshman's nerve when observed between gastrocnemius and soleus here. And the deep group consists of four muscles. You can see popliteus, flexor hallucis longus, flexor digitorum longus, and tibialis posterior. Popliteus is originating from the lateral surface of lateral condyle of femur, and also some fibers are rising from lateral meniscus. It is going to come out of the fibrous capsule of knee joint and then insert on the posterior surface of tibia above the soleal line. The nerve supply is tibial nerve. As with the other posterior leg muscles, it is a weak flexor of knee, and it is mainly involved in unlocking of knee joint as it medially rotates the tibia or laterally rotates the femur. This mechanism has been discussed in knee joint in detail. The flexor hallucis muscle is arising from the posterior surface of fibula. You can see here below soleus, and it is going to insert on the base of distal phalanx of big toe on the plantar aspect. Also supplied by tibial nerve, it is a flexor of big toe, and it also flexes all the joints, small joints of great toe, and it also weakly flexes, plantar flexes the ankle, and it is going to support the medial longitudinal arch of foot, which is discussed later. Then the two muscles arising from the posterior surface of tibia are flexor digitorum longus and tibialis posterior. You can see the tibialis posterior is arising from the posterior surface of tibia lateral to the vertical ridge below the soleal line, and also from the interosseous membrane. Here you can observe that it is going to cross from lateral side to medial side deep to the tendon of digitorum, and then it is going to be inserted on the medial cuneiform and the bases of second, third and fourth metatarsals on the plantar aspect. Some fibers are also attached to the navicular bone on its tuberosity. It's supplied by tibial nerve, and it is a plantar flexor at ankle joint and inverter of foot at subtalar and mid-tarsal joint. Then from the medial part of the posterior surface, the flexor digitorum longus is going to take origin, and then the tendon is going to cross from a medial side towards lateral side here, and then it is going to divide into four tendons which are inserted on the plantar aspect of the bases of distal phalanges of lateral four toes. Nerve supply is again tibial nerve, and the flexor digitorum longus, like flexor hallucis longus, is going to flex the lateral four digits at all small joints, and it is also a plantar flexor of ankle joint, and it is going to support the longitudinal arches also. Gluteus is a small, thin, triangular muscle of the deep group, which is very important regarding the knee joint. You can observe here that it has a tendinous origin from the lateral aspect of lateral condyle of femur and also from the lateral meniscus. This tendon is passing between the fibrous capsule and the synovial membrane, and then it comes out from the posterior aspect of fibrous capsule and inserted as a muscular insertion on the posterior aspect of tibia. During the movement of knee joint, it is going to pull the lateral meniscus and prevent it from being damaged. Also, when in standing position the knee is locked, this muscle is going to lateral rotate femur and cause unlocking of the knee joint before it is flexed. Blood supply of the posterior compartment is through the posterior tibial vessels. The posterior tibial artery is the larger terminal branch of popliteal artery. We can observe here when popliteal artery is passing below the soleal arch, it terminates into anterior and posterior tibial arteries. Above the interosseous membrane, the anterior tibial artery is going to pass towards the anterior compartment of leg, while posterior tibial artery immediately gives off a large artery, the fibular artery. You can see here that is going to supply the lateral part of the posterior compartment and also the lateral compartment of leg through its perforating branches, as discussed previously. Posterior tibial artery is going to course here. You can observe between the tibialis posterior and flexor digitorum longus, and then it is also lying deep to the superficial group of posterior compartment muscles. Passing deep to the flexor retinaculum, it is going to terminate at this level. Here you can observe into medial and lateral plantar arteries. In the leg, in posterior compartment, other than fibular artery, the branches arising from posterior tibial artery are nutrient artery of tibia, as you can see here, while the nutrient artery of fibula, see here, is arising from the fibular artery. Then we have this circumflex fibular branch, which is going to participate in the anastomosis around knee joint. And then we have different muscular branches which are going to supply the medial half of the muscles of posterior leg and also the superficial group. The posterior tibial vein is formed from medial and lateral plantar veins, and then it is the vena comitant run in the opposite direction and end in the popliteal vein. The relation of these vessels in the tarsal tunnel will be discussed in the coming slides. The posterior tibial artery is palpable here as shown in the diagram. This pulse is taken behind the medial malleolus. We invert the foot to relax the flexor retinaculum and then palpate the posterior tibial artery posterior inferior to the medial malleolus. This is done to rule out the peripheral blockade of this vessel. The nerve supply of this compartment is by tibial nerve, as we know that at the upper angle of popliteal fossa, the sciatic nerve is going to divide into terminal branches, the tibial nerve and common fibular nerve. The tibial nerve is going to show the same relations as the posterior tibial vessels. It is going to pass deep to the gastrocnemius muscle and then the soleal arch, and then comes to lie between the superficial and deep layer of muscles. It is lying here along with the posterior tibial vessels between flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum longus, and is lying on the tibialis posterior muscle. Its relation with the other structures in the tarsal tunnel will be discussed later. Now, the cutaneous branches have already been discussed previously, and then we have articular branches to the knee and ankle joint. And then here we can observe that before passing deep to the soleal arch, this nerve is going to supply the superficial group and popliteus muscle of the deep group, and then after passing deep to the soleal arch, it is going to supply the rest of three deep muscles, these tibialis posterior, flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum longus. After passing deep to flexor retinaculum, it is going to terminate as medial and lateral plantar nerve, which are going to supply sole. As previously discussed, the transverse intermuscular septum is going to divide the posterior compartment into a superficial and deep subcompartment, and the superficial group are inserted here on the calcaneum, while the lower part of transverse septum is thickened up to form the flexor retinaculum. Flexor retinaculum is attached here from the medial malleolus to the medial surface of calcaneum, and the tendons of deep group of posterior compartment and the neurovascular bundle are going to pass deep to this flexor retinaculum here. This part is deep to the flexor retinaculum is known as tarsal tunnel. It is homologous with the carpal tunnel present in the upper limb as seen, and due to the embryological rotation of lower limb, it is present posteriorly. So you can see the arrangement of structures in the tarsal tunnel. And you can observe that the most medial structure is tibialis posterior, as tibialis posterior crosses deep to digitorum to get most medial. Then we have the tendon of flexor digitorum longus, then the neurovascular bundle, and then the tendon of flexor hallucis longus. So in tarsal tunnel and lower part of posterior leg, we can see that the neurovascular structure is lying between flexor digitorum longus and flexor hallucis longus tendon, and the tibial nerve is lateral while the posterior tibial vessels are lying medial. All the structures from the posterior compartment are tapering here and packed in this tunnel. So trauma is in this region can result in damage to all these structures, especially entrapment of tibial nerve. Now, trauma in the region of tarsal tunnel results in compression and damage to the structures passing through the tarsal tunnel, and this is collectively known as tarsal tunnel syndrome. You can see here that the tendons of the muscles passing through the tarsal tunnel are inflamed in this section as compared to the normal one, and then there is nerve entrapment due to compression of the tibial nerve, and then the posterior tibial vessels are also compressed. Now, due to the inflammation or tendinitis of the tendons of posterior compartment, there is pain in the region of tarsal tunnel here, and then due to the nerve compression, the pain also radiates towards the sole, which is the territory of tibial nerve. Prolonged entrapment can result in pins and needle sensation and then numbness of the marked area. As the muscles are plantar flexors, so there is weakness of plantar flexion, especially marked weakness in plantar flexion of all the toes. Now checking the ankle reflex or calcaneal tendon reflex is a normal routine examination, and by stroking the calcaneal tendon, there is a jerky plantar flexion, and the root values involved in this reflex test are S1 and S2. S1 is the main root value involved. The tear or inflammation of Achilles tendon is usually occurring in athletes commonly, or chronic trauma or repeated trauma can lead to rupture of calcaneal tendon as seen in this diagram here, and this result in pain around this posterior aspect of ankle. There can be swelling and bruising in this region also, and then when the patient is trying to walk and lift off the heel, performing plantar flexion when the knee is extended, then as the superficial group is involved in this movement, there is extreme excruciating pain in this condition, and normally in normal persons it can be repaired by immobilization, but in athletes we have to do surgical intervention to bring the tendon, the torn parts together. So there is a bursa located deep to the calcaneal tendon between this tendon and the posterior surface of calcaneum, and commonly in athletes and especially the long distance runners and basketball players, This bursa can be inflamed, and this is known as calcaneal bursitis or retroachilles bursitis, and there is pain in the region, especially when on touching, and the pain is aggravated during plantar flexion. Tibial nerve, as already discussed, is not commonly damaged, as it is having a straight vertical course in the popliteal fossa, and it has a deep protected position in the popliteal fossa as well as in leg. Tibial nerve entrapment is seen in tarsal tunnel syndrome, as previously discussed, and it can also be damaged in its upper part by trauma. In the tarsal tunnel, the symptoms are only limited to foot, but when the upper part of tibial nerve is damaged, especially in the popliteal region, in the popliteal fossa, then there are some problems arising. All the territory of skin of tibial nerve is numb, as shown in this diagram. The posterior part of leg and the sole of foot. Then motor effects are inability to perform plantar flexion and to some extent inversion. So the foot is in this condition as shown here. It is everted and dorsiflexed. This condition is known as calcaneovalgus.